is Flask hard? Okay, so Flask can be hard, but we're not going to get into all of the crazy advanced aspects of Flask. We're just doing a brief, the simplest possible introduction to Flask that is possible to do. Because if we got too in detail, then you'd have to learn all kinds of stuff about HTTP requests and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so I don't think that Flask is hard, but I guess we'll see. Okay, so all right, so let's go ahead and get into Flask. All right, so here's what we're going to do first. All right, we're going to go to the Google machine. The heck is this? Okay, Google. All right, and I'm going to type in Python Flask. Can you guys all see this? I think you can, right? I'm sharing my whole screen. Okay, good. All right, so Python Flask. So here we go. All right, the very first thing that comes up is this flask.palletsprojects.com. Okay, so I'm going to just click on this first link. All right, so what Flask is going to allow us to do, this is going to allow us to do some web development. Okay. So far, everything that we've done in this class, we've just done command line kind of stuff with a little bit of tkinter GUIs, okay? But now we're actually going to take it to the next level, and we're going to use Python to make a web application, okay? And in particular, we're not going to do like a big HTML. We're going to make a web service similar to the Pokemon API, right? So let me go back to the Pokemon API to refresh your memory. Pokemon API. Okay, here we go. All right. And so remember, I could put things into this URL, all right? And depending on what I put in here, I get back different data in the form of this JSON data, okay? So like here we have the results for Ditto, but somebody pointed out you can put in numbers. So like if I put in 500, okay, now I'm getting the Pokemon information on, I don't know which Pokemon this is because I can't see its name. It's buried somewhere in here in this data. But at any rate, this is probably Pokemon 500. Okay, so wow, look at how long this is. That's really long. It just goes on and on and on and on forever. Okay, well, at any rate. So, so that's the Pokemon, okay? Now, we're going to, using Flask, we're going to create our own API, okay? So I want to walk you through how to kind of get Flask set up, all right? Now, Flask is similar to requests, okay? It depends a lot on the version of Python you're using, the operating system that you're using, how you've installed Python, whether you're using just like a normal Python distribution or if you're using Anaconda, or if you're using something else like that. So I can't run into all of the different machinations that there are for installing Flask. But what I will tell you is here on this very first, on this very first page, okay, you can see right here, welcome to Flask documentation. The very first link on here is get started with installation. Okay, so we can click on this. All right, I'm going to show you a way that I like to install my Python libraries. Okay, I like to follow the virtual environments. Okay, and so what a virtual environment for Python is that means that you create a Python that's specific to the directory or the folder that you're working in. Okay, and that Python is completely self-contained and separate from like the Python that's running on your system. Okay, that way, if you install a whole bunch of crazy libraries and stuff in there, and then decide, well, I don't need those anymore, you can just blow away that virtual Python and it doesn't affect anything else in your system. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm running on a Mac. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so I'm going to create a new directory. Let's see what lecture we're on here. We're on, okay, I'm just going to make a directory called lecture 8. Okay, And so I'm going to go into my lecture 18, this completely empty directory. Okay. So this is what I'm going to type in order to create my new Python. Okay. Now, the first thing that I want to show you before I even do that, if I do Python minus version, Python minus version, maybe. Okay. So the default Python that's running on my Mac is Python 2.7.16. Okay. I also have a Python 3 running on my Mac, which is Python 3.8.2. So already you can see that I have two different Pythons. Okay. If I type in which Python, I can see that I'm using the Python that is in /user/bin/Python. And if I do which Python 3, I can see that I'm using the Python 3 that's installed in /library/framework/python.framework version 3.8 bin Python 3. Okay. So I've got two different Pythons here. All right. Now I'm going to show you how to create a virtual Python that only is specific to this lecture 18 directory. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in Python 3, and then I'm going to do -m venv. That's for virtual env. And then after that, you need to give it a folder name, and I'm just going to put in venv. Okay. So I'm going to do that. And it's going to sit here. Okay. And now it returns. And so now if I do an ls, I see, oh, okay. Now I have this folder in here, this venv folder. Okay. And if I go into that folder and look around, you can see that I have a bin, I have an include, I have a lib, I've got this CFG. So if I go into the bin, all right, you will see that there's a bunch of stuff in here to include a Python and a Python 3 and a pip3 and all this kind of stuff, okay? So this is what you need to do, okay? If you're on a Mac, okay, and this works pretty similarly on Linux if you're on Linux, okay? I'm going to type in source venv bin activate. Okay. Now, by doing that, you'll notice that my prompt here changed a little bit, indicating that I'm in some sort of virtual environment. But here's the interesting thing. If I type which Python, okay, now you see that instead of using back here, remember when I did which Python, it said I was using user bin Python. Because I did this activate, now I'm using the Python that's here in my virtual environment. Okay. All right. So now that I'm using this specific Python, I can go ahead and install whatever I need. So like if I need the requests, I can do pip3. Oh, that's the other thing, is if I do which pip3, okay, I'm using the pip3 in this directory. Okay. So I can do pip3 install requests. Okay, we used the requests in the last assignment. There we go. It goes, it downloads a bunch of stuff. Yay, I'm done. I have the requests, okay? For Flask, same deal. I just do pip3 install, and then it's Flask with the, I think you have to use a capital F, okay? But at any rate, you can consult the instructions that tell you what to do, okay? So I'm going to do pip3 install Flask with the capital F. It goes, it downloads a bunch of crap, and I'm done. Okay. So now I should be able to, and the way you test to see whether or not it worked is if I type in Python, okay, I should be able to do import Flask, okay? And if it doesn't crash or give you some kind of error, then that means that it worked, okay? Import requests, okay? Great, there it is, okay? All right, so you need to follow whatever instructions that pertain to your version of Python and your operating system and your version of that operating system in order to get the requests and Flask installed, Flask in particular, okay? Now, one of the interesting things is, okay, if I go back into this venv directory, okay, and then I go back into the bin directory, you'll notice that there is now a file here called Flask. Okay, this is actually an executable file. Okay, if I go back here earlier to when I listed what was in that directory. Oh, maybe I never did list what was in that directory. Oh, here we go. Notice that there was no Flask. Okay, see in here. Okay, there was no file called Flask anywhere. Okay, but now that I've installed it using pip3 install, now I have this program here called Flask. Okay, and so this is what we're going to actually use to run our Flask program. Okay. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Allergy season. Okay. Okay, so now that we have Flask installed, okay, let me get out of this. I am going to go back to the main page here of the Flask documentation. Okay. And there is, right after get started with installation, it says get an overview with the quick start. Okay, so I'm going to click on the quick start. Okay. And you will see that this assumes that you have Flask installed, but it says a minimal Flask application looks something like this. Okay, so it looks just like this. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to actually type this in. All right, so I'm going to go back out here to my lecture 18 folder. Okay, all right, now you can name your program whatever you want. Okay, but be careful. All right, if you name it something like lecture18.py or something like that, then you have to be very cognizant about what you stick in here. Okay, so what I'm going to do in order to make my life easier is I'm going to name my file app.py. Okay, I recommend that you do the same. Okay, if you name it app.py, then you don't have to supply any other information when you actually run this program. Okay, so name it app.py. If you name it something else, then there's going to be some additional hassle that you're going to have to go through in order to get it to run. Okay, so that's key piece of information number one. So I'm going to name it app.py. Okay, all right, now let's see what we have here. So we have from Flask lowercase f import Flask uppercase f. Okay, I'm going to actually simplify this. Okay, and instead of putting in this underscore name, I'm just going to put in a string of whatever. Okay, this doesn't matter. Okay, now you can use the underscore name if you want to, but all I want to point out is that for our purposes here, Flask 101, this doesn't make any difference at all. Okay, there's a reason why you would, like, if you were doing this for real, you would want to use the underscore name, but we don't need to concern ourselves with that at all. Okay, so you do have to supply some kind of a string here. Okay, so I've just put a string here. All right, this really, it doesn't really matter what you put in there for what we're doing. Okay, now the next thing is we have this at app.root. Okay, you guys remember when we saw these annotations before? Who remembers when we did annotations? Remember when we were doing like the, well, I don't know. Do any of you guys remember? Yeah, the abstract stuff. Okay, so remember when we were doing abstract classes, the import ABC and all that kind of stuff? So we've seen annotations before. Again, I don't want to get too detailed into what annotations are and all the different things that you would use them for, but Flask makes use of them. Okay, and so there's this at app.root, and then there's this /. Okay, all right, we'll explain this in more detail in a minute, but for right now, that's good enough. Okay, then we're going to define a function. Okay, just like we've normally defined. Okay, and this function can basically be named anything. We're going to name it hello world, but you could name it whatever you want. All right, and all we're going to do is we're just going to return the string hello world. All right, so that's it. Okay, that's my entire Flask program. So somebody was asking earlier, is Flask hard? Well, for a simple application like this, the answer is no. Okay, it's not hard at all. Look at how easy that is. Okay, so I'm going to save this. All right, so I now have this file app.py. It has just this stuff in it. All right, now I'm going to open up another window. Okay, now notice my prompt here doesn't indicate that I'm in the virtual environment anymore. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm in my virtual environment because that's where I installed Flask. Okay, so in order to do that, every time I bring up a new prompt here, I have to do my source env bin activate like that. Okay, now it puts me back into this virtual environment. Okay, all right, now if I were to just do Python and then app.py, okay, it doesn't appear that anything happened. It just kind of ran and didn't do anything. Okay, so that's not particularly interesting. And the reason why is that this particular application with these annotations, this is a specific Flask thing. Okay, and remember when I was showing you that binary earlier? Remember if I do ls venb, okay, remember how there's this Flask? Okay, so this is what we're going to actually use to run our program. Okay, we're not going to run it the way that we normally do with Python app.py. Okay, we're going to run it like this. So we're going to do Flask run. Okay, now before I do Flask run, okay, I'm going to do Flask -- help. So you can see here are some of the different options, okay, that talk about how you run Flask. Okay, but in particular, here are some of the commands. So there's roots, run, and shell. Okay, run is the one that we're going to use. Okay, and then if you want to get more help on one of these commands, you can do like Flask run -- help. Okay, and now here are all of the things that you can pass to Flask run. Okay, now one of the things that I want to point out, okay, is this option right here. Okay, which is -- reload. Okay, this is absolutely a great one to use. Okay, because what it means is that once I start this Flask thing running, I can go into this application and make changes, and my changes will automatically be loaded. Okay, so I'm going to show you. Actually, what I'll do is I'll show you first what happens if we don't use it. Okay, so I'm going to do Flask run. Okay, when I type in Flask run, it says the environment is production. It gives me some warning and says, don't use this in a production deployment. Use a production, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Debug mode is off. And it says running on HTTP 127.0.0.1:5000. Okay. All right. And you notice that it's just sitting here. Okay. So my application is actually running now. Okay, I can take this URL, I can copy it, all right, and then over here, I'm going to bring up a new window in my web browser. I'm going to put in that URL, okay, and I'm going to hit enter, and look, it said, hello world, okay? So I now have a web application. All right, when I go to this website, 127.0.0.1, which is just the IP address of my machine, basically, okay, :5000, then it prints out this hello world, which is exactly what our app, we go back here, this is what we told it to do. Okay, now suppose we say, you know what, hello world, that's kind of stupid. I want to change it. I want it to say something else. All right. Hello, Earthling. All right. So I went ahead and I made that change. I saved the file. Okay. And now when I reload this page, nothing happened. I keep hitting reload. It still says hello world. Okay. And so that's what I was kind of talking about earlier. So, and you see that. So in other words, it took what I had in there before and kind of stuck it in memory, and now it's ignoring my changes. Okay, well, that's not desirable. We're sitting here trying to build an app. Okay, so I'm going to press, notice that it says press Control-C to quit. Okay, so I'm going to press Control-C, and this time I'm going to do Flask run, and I'm going to do -- okay, somebody says you have to reload it. Okay, so yes. So this is where we're going to do the -- reload. Okay, so we're going to do Flask run minus minus reload. All right. Now, this time, all right, I want to show you. Watch what happens. Okay. So if I refresh this page, see it says hello Earthling. But now that I'm running it in reload mode, remember with this Flask run dash dash reload, if I go in here and I change something, you have stinky feet. Okay. When I save it, all right, if I go back over here, you'll see that, oh, I detected a change. I'm going to reload the thing. I didn't actually have to do anything. And now when I refresh the page, you'll see that my changes just take. Okay. Pretty cool, huh? All right. Now you're probably asking yourself, all right, well, this is a really stupid web application. It doesn't do anything. Okay. I can't do anything. There's no way to interact. Okay. Now, if we remember with the Pokemon, what we did is we could change things in the URL. Okay. And then that would give us different, if I put in a Pokemon's name here, I get different information. So I'm going to show you how to do that next. Okay. So what I'm going to do, all right, I'm going to leave this the same. All right. And I'm going to copy all of this stuff right here. Okay. So now I'm going to create another app root. Okay. Now this app root / basically means after my URL, okay, there's usually like a /, like if I go here, there's always this flask.pelletsproject.com, and then there's a / and then there's some additional stuff. Okay. So that's what that route is referring to, is it's the / and it's the stuff after the URL. Okay. So what does that mean? All right. Well, I'm going to create a new root called do stuff. Okay. So there we have the / do stuff. All right. Now I'm going to create a new function. Remember, you can't repeat function names. So I'm going to I'll call this do stuff. Okay. This can be named anything. It does not matter. Okay. And so now I have a different route, and then this is going to return something else. Okay. So this is going to say, I am doing stuff. Okay. So I save that. All right. If I go back here and I refresh this, you see it still says, hello, you have stinky feet, because I don't even have a / in here, right? There's no / onto this. Let me make this a little bit larger. Okay. There's no / over here. All right. But I now have this other route here called /do stuff. So what would happen if in this URL I put in a /do stuff? Okay. You see that now it says, oh, okay, I see that you have created this route to /do stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to execute this code down here. Okay. And I can make as many of these as I want. Okay. So I could say, here's another one right here. We'll call this one more stuff. Okay. All right. I'm doing more stuff. All right. And so if I now were to go ahead and, I still have, I have an error because I forgot to rename this function. So this is something you need to be careful about doing. Okay. So I can't have two. I've got a function do stuff here and another function do stuff here. So you need to have different function names. All right. So there's do stuff and do more stuff now. Okay. Now my do stuff works. Okay. And my do more stuff. Did I spell it wrong? No, maybe I spelled it wrong. Oh, it's /more stuff, not do more stuff. Okay. There we go. I am doing more stuff. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Comments? Can you do 2 within 1? Yeah. Okay. Good question. Let's try it. Okay. So now let's do foo/bar. Okay. We'll call this function foo bar. and we'll say turn wing the bar. Okay, and so now if I go to /foo/bar, it says fooing the bar. If I just remove the bar, and so now I just have /foo, then I get a not found because I don't have a path for handling just /foo. Okay, I'm only handling /foo/bar. Okay, but so yes, you can. All right. All right, but now this is still kind of stupid. Okay, because you know, suppose that I want to like with the Pokemon thing, right? If there's 1,000 Pokemon, I would presumably have to have 1,000 different things here, okay? And that's not super ideal, okay? So I'm going to show you another thing that you can do, okay? So I'm going to create, well, here, I'll just create a new one, okay? So let me copy this one. Okay, now what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to call this dynamic. And then after the dynamic, I'm going to put in angle brackets. And then I'm going to put in my var like that. Okay, see how I use the angle brackets? Okay, now what I've effectively done is I've said, you know what? I want this. So I want after the word dynamic, I want the next part of the URL to be a variable. Okay, it could be anything. All right, and I'm going to name that variable myvar. So now in my function here, I'll call this dynamic stuff or whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, I need to accept an argument of myvar. So this argument needs to match what's inside these angle brackets. Okay, all right. And now here's where it gets really interesting, is now I can do something like hello. All right. And now this is what I can do, hello plus myvar if I want to. Okay. Plus how are you doing? Okay. All right. So there we go. So we have a nice little string there. Okay. Now let's see what happens if I do this. Okay. So keep in mind our route now is /dynamic/ and then I should be able to just type in anything here. Okay, so let's try it. So I'm going to do /dynamic/ Billy. Okay, and you see what happened there? Okay, it says, hello, Billy, how are you doing? Now wait, okay, what would happen if I put in Fred? Hello, Fred, how are you doing? Okay, what about Leroy Jenkins? Hello, Leroy Jenkins, how are you doing? See? Okay, so now that I have some ability to control this URL, I have a variable in here that I could then go do something with. I could take that variable and I could do a calculation on it. I could go look something up, okay? I could do any number of things, okay? So let's go ahead and do one more quick example in the 10 minutes or so we have left, all right? I'm gonna quickly define just a basic Python dictionary, okay? So I'm gonna do populations, okay? This is gonna be a Python dictionary, and we'll do China, and we'll say the population is, I think the population of China is like 1.2 billion, so 0.00000. Okay, we'll do USA. That one's about 350 million, I think. I don't know exactly. Okay, did I get that right? 350,000,000. Okay, and maybe we'll just do one more. I don't know, Canada. I have no idea what the population of Canada is. Oh, I know what I think the population of Poland is about 40 million. So I'll do that one. Okay, 40,000,000. Okay, so there we go. You got a very simple Python dictionary. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually make a route for populations. So we'll do /population. Okay, and again, I'm going to put in country here as my variable name. Okay. Okay, so if I do, when I define my functions, get population stuff. Okay, I need to put country in here. Okay, they need to match. All right. And I am going to return the population of plus country plus is plus, and now I'm going to use my hash up or my dictionary populations sub country like that. Okay. So let's go ahead and watch this. So I'm going to save that. All right. Now I'm going to go up here to my URL and I'm going to say population/Canada. Okay. And I get an internal server error. So why did I get the internal server error? It says key error Canada. Oh, did I not put, no, I don't have Canada in my list. Okay. So going to need to put in some error handling at some point. But for now, let's go ahead and try one that we actually have. So let's try Poland. That's surprising. This says the error that I got is can only concatenate string, not int. Okay, so this is returns an integer. So I need to actually do my strings the correct way and put this in str. Okay. All right, so now hopefully, so we see that the population of Poland is 40 million. All right. If I change Poland to USA, the population of USA is 350 million. China. Okay, we've got, so in other words, I can go take the variable that's coming here inside the URL and I can go use it to look something up or compute something. All right. Maybe I have a database. I could go run a query, you know, and pass in China and get back a whole bunch of information about China. Okay. So that right there is very, very simple Flask in a nutshell. Okay. All right. It doesn't get a whole lot easier than that. Now, one of the things that I want to point out too is that you don't just have to return strings. Okay. I can return other things as well. Like for example, in this case, let me go ahead and define another route where it's just population with nothing else, okay, without a country. Okay, so in that case, what I'll do is I'm just going to return my populations dictionary. Okay, so watch this. So if I reload this, ooh, keep forgetting to rename my function. Okay, so I still have my China, but now if I remove all of this China stuff and that trailing slash, oh no, it didn't work. Missing one required. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this function, because I removed the variable right here, I need to remove this. This doesn't accept a attribute anymore, a variable. Okay, so all right, so now this should, okay, so now see how this returns me JSON. Okay, see that? Okay, so look, I have something now. My population thing obviously isn't as sophisticated or as neat as the Pokemon one, but it does basically the same thing in the sense that I can put stuff in the URL and I can get different things back in JSON format. Okay, so that's basically what we're going to be doing for both the lab and the assignment. So let me run through those really quickly. Let me Oh, I don't have the lab here. Let's see, where's the lab? Labs. Okay, so for the lab, you're going to install Flask. You're going to create the minimal Flask application. Okay, all the stuff that we just kind of went through. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to modify the Flask application. So we're going to actually have two variables. Okay, I just showed you examples there of one, but here we're going to have two, A and B. And then when the path is reached, the application should print out the sum of A and B is A plus B, this difference, the product, and the quotient. So we're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Okay. So for example, if I was to browse to the 127.0.0.1:5000/84/10, then what it should print out on my browser is the sum of 84 and 10, because there's the 84 and there's the 10, is 94. The difference of 84 and 10 is 74. The product is 840, and the quotient, which is when you divide them, 84 divided by 10 is 8.4. Okay. All right. So you should know enough based on just this lecture that we had to be able to figure out how to do that. Okay. It's just basically simple math. Okay. All right. Now the assignment is a little bit more complicated. All right. And given that we're short on time, I don't necessarily want to delve too deeply into it. Okay. We can talk about it more next time. But here it is. Okay. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to do two things. Okay. In the last assignment, we created a tkinter application that reached out to this Pokemon API and then returned stuff to the tkinter application. Now we're going to be doing both things. We're going to be creating the service that returns a bunch of information. Okay. Interestingly enough, the information that we're doing is Prussian horse kicks. Okay. So between 1875 and 1894, soldiers in the Prussian cavalry were killed by being kicked by a horse back when they had horses. And so I actually found a data set that kept track of the number of soldiers in different units of their army that were killed by horse kicks. Okay. So there's this data set. All right. So we're going to create the API for that. So instead of it returning information about Pokemon, you're gonna supply a year and the unit of the army, the corps they call it, of the army, and then it's going to tell you the number of people in that corps for that year who were killed by a horse. Okay, so this is a little bit tricky because there's going to be different endpoints and different ways of querying this service to get back information. Okay, but then after you create that web service, okay, that API, then you're going to create the tkinter application that actually talks to that and gets information back from it. Okay, and I'll go into this in a lot more detail next on Thursday. We're out of time right now, so I'll just leave it at that. It's out there for you to go ahead and take a look at and start messing with if you want to. Okay, so that's basically what we're going to be doing for the homework assignment and for the lab. Okay, so again, Flask is a lot more complicated than what we're talking about today. This is just to give you a really, really gentle, brief introduction into, number one, the idea that you can use Python to do web development. And number two, you can use this Flask framework to kind of make your web development a little bit easier. Okay, and so we saw that very quickly with just a small number of lines of code, we were able to actually get quite a bit of functionality in making this web application without really having to know a whole lot about how the web actually works. Okay, all right, so it's 8:30. Does anybody have any questions before we adjourn? Okay. If there are no questions, then I will see you all on Thursday. Have a good night.